Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video where we dive once again into the fantastic world of dinosaurs. And we'll do so to get to know all of these specimens. We will talk about the name of each one of them and mention some of their characteristics. Also, I like these figures because they're the soft kind that we can squish and stretch. Here we can also see the complete skeleton with the fossil remains of a great Tyrannosaurus rex. We will talk about paleontology and about how fossil remains are formed over millions of years. Also, in today's video, we are joined by two large carnivores. Here we have a large Allosaurus. It was a giant among giants. Also, we can open and close its jaw, revealing its sharp teeth and its tongue tilted upwards. As you can see, it had two small crests on the top of its head. That was something very characteristic of it. It was a dinosaur, a bipedal dinosaur, and its hind legs were very small but long enough to catch meat and bring it to its mouth. On the other hand, we also have a very famous dinosaur. It's the great Velociraptor. It was much smaller than the large carnivores of the Cretaceous period. However, it was able to catch large prey, since velociraptors were very fast and also hunted in groups or packs. As you can see, they had a long tail. They used it to change direction while running. Also, one of their toes had a hook-shaped claw, and their front legs were quite long. Their teeth, although not very large, were very sharp. And now, let's start by taking out the first dinosaur. Here we have a herbivorous dinosaur. Its name is Ankylosaurus, and it was a type of armored dinosaur, since the upper part of its body was super tough and covered with large spikes. It also had a long tail with a ball or club at the tip, which it used for defense, swinging it from side to side to defend itself from predators. It was also a quadrupedal dinosaur that walked on its hind legs, and on its head, it also had large spikes. As you can see, we can squish it because the inside is filled with cork balls. It lived on planet Earth during the Cretaceous period. That's why it was also called the Cretaceous armadillo. We'll leave it here and continue with a different one. Look, this time we have one of the most famous carnivores there is. It's a very well-known dinosaur, especially because of the two horns it had on its head, which are very similar to the horns of a bull. It's called Carnotaurus. The Carnotaurus was a large carnivore with an impressive jaw. However, its sides were flattened. That helped it lighten the weight of its large head. It was also a bipedal dinosaur that walked on its hind legs, and it had a long, heavy tail. It could reach about 10 meters in length from the tip of its mouth to the end of its tail. Also, on its back, it had a small row of spines that ran along its entire body almost to the end of its tail. Its front legs, as you know, were much smaller. A great carnivore that could easily face the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex. Let's see which one is next. Let's continue with another dinosaur. A very well-known one, since throughout history many fossil remains have been found. It's a Stegosaurus. It was characterized by the large bony plates that ran along the entire dorsal part of its body, divided into two big rows. As you can see, its plates were much larger in the middle of its back, while they were smaller on its neck and right before the end of its tail. At the tip of its tail, we can see four large spikes. When they were young, their spikes were smaller, but as they became adults, their spikes grew and they could defend themselves more effectively. Also, as you can see, their hind legs were bigger and stronger than their front legs. And that was so they could use their big defensive tail swipe to swing their tail with a lot of strength and power. Also, its head was very small compared to the rest of its body, and it had a small beak to snap off the grass and eat it. Another one over here. Let's continue with a different one. How about we check out this cool one? As you can see, it has an impressive crest of spines. This dinosaur is called Dimetrodon. Its body was very similar to the shape of modern lizards. However, the Dimetrodon was gigantic in size compared to lizards. Its jaw was impressively strong. As you can see, it wasn't very elongated like the jaw of the Spinosaurus. However, it had a lot of power and a very strong bite. Its crest of spines could reach up to 2 meters in length. As you can see, it was a quadruped and loved to dive into the water in search of food. However, this dinosaur ate both marine animals and small land animals. Here's another one. Let's see which one we get now. Look, we're seeing a marine reptile. Wow, that's so cool! It's blue and has a darker shade on the underside. This great marine reptile was a giant of the oceans and was called Elasmosaurus. As you can see, its most distinctive feature was its long neck. It was much longer than its tail. Its body was also quite robust, and it had 4 strong flippers that it used to swim at high speed. The front flippers were slightly larger than the back ones. And here we can see its jaw, with teeth that were also quite large for chewing up its prey. We'll leave it here. How about we take a look at the complete skeleton of a large Tyrannosaurus rex? As you can see, it shows every bone in detail. We can also make out the shape of its skull, its eye sockets, and its sharp teeth. The science that studies the fossil remains of dinosaurs is called paleontology, and it is paleontologists, both men and women, who are in charge of digging in the ground in search of them all. Let's check the book for more information. In the book, we have more information about their formation. First of all, it tells us that for a fossil to form, an organism must die in an area where there is water. For example, this Tyrannosaurus rex. Over time, its bones are buried by sediments. Also, over millions of years, these sediments begin to rise to the surface. And that's when paleontologists are able to dig into the earth and look for all these remains, to the point that complete dinosaur skeletons have even been found. That's why, and thanks to this work, we know all the information about dinosaurs. And we continue discovering new dinosaurs. Look, over here we have a really cool one. It's the famous Dilophosaurus. It was characterized by the crests it had. The 2 on top looked a lot like a rooster's comb. As you can see, it's a carnivorous dinosaur. It was one of the first carnivores that ever existed. It was a bipedal dinosaur and had a strong jaw. It could reach about 2 meters in height and about 6 meters in length from its mouth to the tip of its tail. It also had 3 claws on its front legs to catch prey. Super cool, and above all, very terrifying. Let's continue with another one. This time, it's a dinosaur with a crown-shaped skull. However, it's not the famous Triceratops. This time, it's called Stegosaurus. It was a specimen that had large spikes all along the sides or surface of its big crown. And it also had a defensive horn right on top. As you can see, its teeth are not very sharp. And it also had a strong beak at the tip, something that, as I mentioned, was characteristic of herbivores. In general, Stegosaurus was much smaller than the great Triceratops. Another herbivore over here. Let's see which one we get now. Look at this cool one, friends. It's a feathered dinosaur. It's the great Oviraptor, a dinosaur that had feathers mainly on the back part of its legs, a crest of feathers on the back of its head, but above all, it had a very bushy and long tail, and it also had an impressive range of colors. This dinosaur loved to steal eggs from other nests so it could eat them later. We'll leave our Oviraptor here and move on to a long-necked dinosaur. You know that long-necked dinosaurs are some of my favorite herbivores. These really were giants. They had a neck like that of giraffes, but on a gigantic scale. This one is called Brachiosaurus. We know it by the very distinctive shape of its head. Also, its neck was tilted very much upwards, and therefore it had some differences compared to the great Diplodocus, which also had a long neck. And that's because the Brachiosaurus had front legs that were slightly bigger and longer than the back legs. And that was because it had to support the weight of this long neck. It could reach a length of about 22 meters. Impressive, right? It was super gigantic. So big that it could eat the leaves at the top of the trees, something it loved. Also, its body was so big that it had to eat tons of food every day and drink hundreds of liters of water. Let's continue with another one. Look, over here we have two that are the same. It's another Stegosaurus like the one we saw before, but we also have its fossil remains. Look how cool it is. Here we can see it. And here we have its bones, even its bony plates. As you know, when it comes to fossil remains, only the hard parts of the body become fossilized, such as bones and shells, or even the bony plates of this great Stegosaurus. And we only have a few dinosaurs left inside. But let's talk about this very famous dinosaur that we haven't brought out yet. It's the great Tyrannosaurus rex. Although earlier we did bring out its skeleton made from fossil remains. We haven't really talked about its characteristics yet. And that's because the Tyrannosaurus rex was one of the largest predators that ever existed. Its head alone could be over 1.5 meters long. And its jaw was made up of a total of 60 sharp teeth. Also, its hind legs were very large and robust, just like its tail, which was very heavy, and it helped it balance out the weight of its head. Also, its front legs were very small compared to the rest of its body, which could reach up to 14 meters in length. Another dinosaur over here. Let's see which ones we have left. Look, another herbivorous dinosaur, which I really love, especially because it has many unique features. Oops, this little figure is breaking. What a shame. I'll have to be careful with it. Its name is Parasaurolophus. And it was known for having a large horn on the back of its head. That's its most distinctive feature. And another cool thing about it, this horn was able to make sounds. Sounds that it used to communicate with the rest of the herd, especially in situations when they felt threatened. For example, if a big Tyrannosaurus rex came to attack a Parasaurolophus, one of them would make sounds to warn the rest of the group. Super interesting, right? Let's see. Look, over here we have the last two dinosaurs. This is another T-Rex skeleton, which we've already seen before. So let's take a look at this flying reptile. It's called Anangara, and it was known for its large jaw. As you can see, it was very long, wide, and full of sharp teeth. Almost all flying reptiles had a pretty slim and thin body. They were also very toned. Look, here we can see its muscles. Its body was very similar to that of modern bats. But these flying reptiles were gigantic in size compared to bats. Here we can see it with its wings folded. It had a wingspan of more than 2 meters, so it was a giant of the skies. It could catch food both with its claws and with its large jaw. Thank you! And now we've finished today's video. Here we have all the dinosaurs we've learned about. If you like this video, you can help me by giving me a super like, a thumbs up. And I invite you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. And now, I'll say goodbye to you all. See you in the next video with more amazing dinosaurs. I hope you have a fantastic day. I'm saying goodbye to you now. Bye! Until the next video. Thank you for watching the video. Hello friends! Welcome to a new video. Today we're going to have fun here on the channel getting to know all these new dinosaurs. As you can see, we have two big boxes. One with a herbivorous dinosaur and the one below with a carnivorous dinosaur. But we also have this set that includes 3 different dinosaurs. So let's take them all out to learn things about them. Also, for that, we're going to use the Big Book of Dinosaurs. You already know I love it because inside we have so much information. How about we start by taking out the Stegosaurus, a herbivorous dinosaur that lived on planet Earth during the Jurassic period. As you can see, it comes inside this box. Also, the figure is quite large, although I think it's not articulated. Let's look at the back of the box, and we see some drawings of herbivorous dinosaurs. Here we have a Triceratops, a Stegosaurus, and a long-necked dinosaur. Let's take out our Stegosaurus to see all its features. Well, let's free this Stegosaurus from its box. Look, we can keep the box to use it as a stage and create thousands of different stories. Here, it looks like it's imprisoned, but we just took it out to set it free. We've removed the plastic, and here we have our Stegosaurus figure. As you can see, the figure is quite large. Also, it's made of plastic, but it's not too rigid, so we can squish it a little. It has a lot of detail and different textures on its skin. Also, up close, we can see its face, its mouth, and also the detail of its green eyes. The Stegosaurus was characterized by the large bony plates on the top of its body, divided into two big rows. The largest bony plates were located right in the central upper part. In addition, it also had a long tail with 4 spikes at the tip, which it used defensively to protect itself from predators that tried to attack it. Another interesting fact is that its head was very small compared to the rest of its body. As you can see, it was a quadrupedal dinosaur that walked on all 4 legs. In this figure, the legs are gray. The underside of its body is light-colored, while the upper part is very striking, with reddish and dark colors. I'm also struck by this black stripe that runs across its entire body. The Stegosaurus could reach a length of about 9 meters and weigh more than 3 or 4 tons. Impressive, isn't it, friends?
What?
In the book, we have a lot of information about him. It tells us that his name means roofed lizard. He fed on plants, leaves, grass, and fruits. That's why his mouth wasn't too big. It also tells us that his plates protected the weakest part of his body. Also, his hind legs were bigger than his front legs. This way, he could move his tail very quickly to protect himself. It tells us about a defensive tail swipe. Another thing I like is that we also get a photograph of the fossil remains of one of its fossilized plates. In some natural history museums around the world, we can find fossil remains of dinosaurs. It's time to meet these 3 dinosaurs that we have on the right side. Look. At the bottom, we have the famous Triceratops, one of the most well-known herbivores that exist. But at the top, we have 2 other specimens that are much cooler, especially because they are rarer species. So I can't wait to take them out to get a better look at them. Also, on the box, we can see an illustration of a carnivorous dinosaur showing us all its sharp teeth. We also have a flying reptile over here. Let's take a look at the back of the box. We also have more illustrations. Over here, a Tyrannosaurus rex, a Stegosaurus. And over here, we also have this reptile, which it says is called Pterosaurus. Let's remove them from the box to see them better. We take them out of the box. And let's look at the figures one by one so we can see their main features. Here, we clearly have a carnivorous dinosaur. As you can see, its body is quite slender and thin. However, we can see a rather well-developed jaw, with some teeth that aren't very big but are surely very sharp. This is the famous Velociraptor, a carnivorous dinosaur that could measure approximately 1 meter in length. As I told you, it was quite light, so it could run at great speed. Its hind legs were larger than the front ones. However, it had very long fingers that it used to catch meat to catch its prey, and also to bring them to its mouth and eat them. It was also characterized by having a long tail, which it used to change direction. Although they were very small dinosaurs compared to others. They were capable of catching large prey, and that's because they hunted in groups or packs. Therefore, they all ran at extreme speed, and they would lunge at their prey to eat it and bring it down. In the book, we have information about the Velociraptor. The first thing I notice is this illustration. Since it is depicted in a way that is very different from what we are really used to seeing in the movies, it tells us that it was much smaller than what appears in the movies. However, it also explains that it had hook-shaped claws to be able to catch its prey better. And at the bottom, we have a real-life photograph with the fossil remains of a Velociraptor and a Triceratops. From the Velociraptor, we can see its long tail. Impressive. It also tells us that it was a very intelligent animal, and its name means swift hunter. It was agile and lethal. We'll leave the Velociraptor here, and the next dinosaur we have is the Dilophosaurus. This dinosaur was characterized by the crests it had on the top of its head, which are very reminiscent of a rooster's combs. As you can see, its body was also quite toned. It was agile and fast, and it also had a long tail. As you can see, it was a bipedal dinosaur. It walked on its hind legs. However, its front legs were also quite long, and it had 3 fingers on each of them. You can see the flattened sides of its head. This made its skull lighter. And we can see a bunch of sharp teeth in its jaw. Super cool, right, friends? The Dilophosaurus could grow to about 2 meters tall, so it was a big dinosaur, but not as big as other carnivorous specimens. In the book, we have a lot of information about the Dilophosaurus. And what catches my attention the most is this illustration, where it looks pretty terrifying. Besides being 2 meters tall, as I mentioned, the dino facts also specify that from its head to the tip of its tail, it could reach up to 7 meters in length. And it could weigh up to 400 kilos. Its name means two-crested lizard. And here we have a fossilized Dilophosaurus footprint. And what I like the most? A real-life photograph of its skull, where we can see both its complete jaw, as well as its crests and the hollows of its eyes and its nostrils. Impressive! An incredible crested predator. We'll leave our Triceratops here. And now it's time to see one of the largest predators that has ever existed. It's the great Tyrannosaurus Rex. And it also comes in this huge box. Let's take it out so we can see it better. As you can see, we can appreciate all the details of its jaw and its skin. On the back, it's just like the previous box, with drawings of other types of dinosaurs. So let's open it up to see it better. We have the same background on the back. And what I like most about this figure is its size. As you can see, it's huge. Also, it's slightly squishy, especially in the middle part. And as you can see, this T-Rex is impressive. Let's bring the jaw area closer so we can see all the details up close. Just the head of the Tyrannosaurus Rex could reach more than 1.5 meters in length. So just imagine, an adult or a child could actually lie down here on its jaw. It had a lot of sharp teeth. Some of them could reach up to 20 centimeters. It had a total of 60 teeth. Also, as you can see, its front legs were very small compared to the rest of its body, and it only had 2 fingers on each of them. However, its hind legs were very large. And it had a long tail that it used to keep its balance. It also used it to attack its prey. Since it was a very long and heavy tail, it would swing it from side to side to knock them down. And once they were on the ground, it would lunge at them to sink its teeth in. I love it, guys. Let's look at information about the Tyrannosaurus. In the book, we have information about the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And what surprises me the most is that its illustration is almost identical to the figure we've just opened. Impressive, right? I think this is the T-Rex figure that looks the most like this photograph or this illustration. Also, in the Dino Facts, it says that it could weigh up to 10 tons and stand about 6 meters tall. And from its tail to the tip of its snout, it could reach up to 13 meters in length. It tells us that its name means tyrant lizard, and it lived on planet Earth during the Cretaceous period. We can also see here the fossil remains with one of the teeth of the Tyrannosaurus rex. As you can see, just one tooth of the T-Rex is as big as an adult's hand. And here we have all the dinosaurs we've learned about. The one I like the most, without a doubt, is the great Tyrannosaurus rex. But the fun isn't over yet. Look, we still have one big box left. And it also comes with a Triceratops, although it's slightly different from the one we saw before. Look, the size difference is pretty significant. So let's take this big one out to get a better look at it. And to see its features. We remove the plastic. And as you can see, this figure is also huge. It comes with its head slightly tilted to the left side. We can see that its body was super robust, and this time it comes in a gray tone. Let's look at the differences with the figure we saw earlier. We can create a lot of different stories, and now it looks like we have its mother along with its baby. We're creating a real Jurassic World. As you can see, the size is similar to the Tyrannosaurus rex and the Stegosaurus. So let's leave its baby here, and let's check the information in the book about the Triceratops. In the book, we can also see an illustration of a mother with her baby. It looks like she is protecting it, so if a carnivorous dinosaur comes, they will use their large bodies for defense. We also have a real-life photograph with the fossil remains of a complete Triceratops skeleton. Impressive, right? It tells us that its name means dinosaur with 3 horns on its face. And it could weigh more than 9 tons. And it could measure about 8 meters in length from its tail to the tip of its beak. It tells us that it was a terrible opponent. And that's it, friends. We've finished today's video. Here we have all the dinosaurs we've learned about. If you liked today's video, you can help me by giving me a big thumbs up. And I invite you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. And now, I say goodbye to you all. See you in the next video with more fun surprises. Big kisses. Goodbye!